Alison Hargreaves was a climber like no other, a woman whose passion for the mountains set her apart from the rest. Her spirit was defined by one thing: adventure. From the towering cliffs of Europe to the remote, icy heights of the Himalayas, Alison pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible. But in 1995, she set her sights on the highest peak of all, Mount Everest. It wasn't just a mountain to her. It was a challenge to everything the world had ever said a woman could or couldn't do. The world watched in awe as she conquered Everest. It was a feat few had accomplished, and none like her had. But just weeks later, on the deadly slopes of K2, tragedy struck. Join us as we explore the remarkable story of Alison Hargreaves, from her rise as one of the world's most fearless climbers to her fateful final climb in the heart of the Himalayas. Alison Jane Hargreaves was born on February 17, 1962, in the quiet countryside of Derbyshire, England. From the time she could walk, Alison was drawn to the wild. When she was just 6, she started hiking with her family through the hills of England and the Scottish Highlands. It didn't take long for her parents to notice she wasn't just following behind, she was always out in front. At just 8 years old, she climbed across Crib Gotch wearing only a pair of wellies. As she grew older, her love for mountains only grew stronger. Her bedroom walls were covered with posters of mountains and climbers. She would spend hours reading books like The White Spider, dreaming of the peaks she wanted to climb. At 13, Alison finally got to join a climbing club, something she dreamed about for years. As soon as she stepped onto the rock wall, she knew this is what she wanted to do with her life. At 16, she started working at a mountaineering shop in Sheffield and met Jim Ballard, a fellow climber. Despite the age gap, their relationship grew. Her parents hoped she'd go to Oxford and become a mathematician with a stable future. She gave it a try, passing all the tests, but her heart was elsewhere. When she was 18, she left home and moved in with Jim, straining her relationship with her parents. After marrying Jim, Alison left her academic plans behind and put all her focus into climbing. They ran a small outdoor gear store together, and in her free time, she trained hard, pushing her body to get stronger and build endurance. By the age of 21, Alison had amazing stamina. She could run for 2 hours nonstop through the hills near their home. But she wasn't a natural prodigy like some of the top female climbers of her time. While climbers such as Catherine Destavel and Lynn Hill were already tackling some of the toughest routes, Alison had only completed a few that were less difficult. Realizing she might not stand out in rock climbing alone, she decided to switch her focus to mountaineering. It turned out to be a wise choice. Her body responded well to the high altitudes, and she quickly adapted to the wide range of skills needed for climbing big mountains. In 1986, Alison Hargreaves got the kind of offer most climbers only dream about: an expedition to the Himalayas with legendary American mountaineer Jeff Lowe. The plan: to take on Kangchenjunga, a remote peak standing nearly 6,800 meters tall. Alongside Tom Frost and rising star Mark Twight, Alison knew she had something to prove. And on May 1st, she did just that. Near the summit, it was Alison who took the front, kicking steps into steep ice as the wind roared around her. She and Twight reached the top together. But when Mark later wrote about the climb, he didn't mention Alison at all. After climbing Kangchenjunga, Twight and Jeff Lowe moved on to another mountain. Without including her, Alison felt left out and disappointed. Still, she didn't give up. She joined forces with Sandy Allen, whose climbing partner had gotten hurt. Together, they tried to climb Lhotse Shar, but had to turn back at 6,500 meters because of dangerous avalanches. In 1988, 2 years later, Alison was pregnant with her first child, but she wanted to do one last major climb before taking a break. At 5 months pregnant, she set her sights on one of Europe's most feared walls, the north face of the Eiger. Freezing ledges, thin air, no margin for error. She made it to the top, but the price was high. She hardly slept and her legs swelled. The baby kicked through the night, and when it was over, she was shattered. Years later, when word of that climb spread, critics called her reckless. Alison didn't flinch. Her answer was clear: I was pregnant, not sick. Motherhood did slow her down, but only for a while. For 4 years, Alison stepped back from the mountains to raise her son Tom and daughter Kate. She never stopped moving, though. running before sunrise, organizing a local kids' playgroup. But the mountains were always there, tugging at her. For most climbers, the hardest part isn't the climb, it's the money. Mountaineering is brutally expensive. Without sponsors or deep pockets, even the most skilled climbers struggle to keep going. And Alison's dream was start to take a toll on her family's bank account. So in 1993, she and her husband Jim made a radical choice. They sold their house, packed up the kids, and hit the road in an old Land Rover. No safety net, no fixed address. Just one goal: give Alison a chance to climb full-time. That same year, Alison carved her name into mountaineering history. She became the first person to solo all 6 of the great north faces of the Alps: the Eiger, Matterhorn, Drew, Piz Battle, Grandes Jorasses, and Cima Grande in a single season. It was a monumental achievement that turned heads. Sponsors began to show interest, and her standing in the climbing world began to rise. She and Jim told the story in A Hard Day's Summer, a book they wrote together. It captured the rhythm of that alpine summer, driving from one valley to the next, camping with their children, while Alison tackled each face alone. Jim looked after the kids while she disappeared into mountains. But despite the historic climbs, the book didn't make much money. It didn't sell the way they hoped. Even after making history, financial stability still seemed just out of reach. That's when Everest came into focus, the tallest mountain on Earth, the ultimate test for any climber. Alison made her first attempt in 1994, but had to turn back just 457 meters from the summit. Her fingers and toes were going numb. It was obvious that if I kept going, I'd lose my fingers and toes. So I turned around and came down, she said later. She didn't hide her disappointment, but she wasn't giving up. 1 year later, on May 13, 1995, she stood at the top of Mount Everest. No bottled oxygen, no Sherpas, no teammates, just Alison. She became the first woman ever to climb Everest solo and without supplemental oxygen. From the summit, she radioed a message down: "I am on top of the world and I love you dearly." It was meant for her children. This time, the sponsors came calling. For once, her climbing career looked like it might finally bring the stability she'd been chasing. But Alison wasn't finished. Her sights were now set on the world's next 2 highest peaks, K2 and Kangchenjunga. The plan was clear: climb K2 first, return home to see her children, then go after Kangchenjunga later. Just 2 weeks after standing on top of Everest, Alison was in Pakistan, preparing for K2. Little did she know that tragedy was waiting just beyond the summit, at over 8,500 meters. K2 is notorious. It's not just high, it's deadly. Known as a savage mountain, K2 has a reputation for harsh conditions, violent storms, and razor-thin margins. Statistically, for every 4 people who reach the top, 1 doesn't make it back down. Alison arrived at base camp in June 1995. But the expedition was plagued by delays. Weather pinned them down for weeks. She switched teams, joining an American group. But her original climbing partner took advantage of a rare break in the weather and reached the summit on July 17th. Without her, eventually, a second window opened. Alison climbed to Camp 4, the last stop before the summit. It was roughly a 12-hour push from there. On August 13th, under blue skies, she made her attempt, and she reached the top. Alison Hargreaves had done it again, becoming the first woman to reach the summits of both Everest and K2 without using bottled oxygen. It was another milestone etched into mountaineering history. But the celebration was brief. A powerful storm swept across the mountain, with winds topping 100 miles per hour. Alison and 5 others were trapped high on the slopes. None of them came down. Word of Alison's disappearance traveled quickly. Speaking from home, her husband Jim said she always knew the risks, but she believed the climb was worth it. For a time, there was hope. Some speculated she might still be alive, stranded somewhere on the mountain. Helicopters flew search missions. Climbers scanned the heights. But K2 remained silent. Back in the UK, the media frenzy reignited. Critics called her reckless. They questioned her choices. How could mother take such risks and leave her children behind? But just as many rose to defend her, friends, fellow climbers, and eventually her own son, Tom. She followed her dream, he would later say. She lived her truth. Alison's legacy didn't fade with time. It grew stronger. Her writings, her interviews, and the sheer courage she showed became a guiding light for many. Books were written, films were made, and Tom Ballard, the son she once cradled at base camp, retraced her path, soloing the same 6 north faces of the Alps, just as she had. But fate had one more cruel echo in store. In 2019, Tom was lost in the mountains too, on Nanga Parbat, not far from where his mother had vanished decades earlier. It was as if the mountain had called them both, a mother and son, bound forever by snow, silence, and the pursuit of something higher. In the end, Alison didn't climb for records or attention. She climbed because she had to. The mountains were her mirror, her monastery, her battlefield, and her home. She understood the risks. She accepted the consequences. And she refused to shrink her dreams to fit the world's expectations. The mountains don't care if you're a man or a woman, a mother or a legend. They don't care about headlines or critics or careers. But Alison knew that, and still she climbed.